Hey, this is OXDF, and today we're looking at the Advent of Code 2015, Day 12, JS Abacus Framework.io. We're doing it in Rust to learn Rust, so let's go ahead and take a look at this one. Basically, we're going to get a large JSON object, which can have arrays, objects, numbers, and strings. Arrays and objects can obviously nest other arrays and objects as well as numbers and strings. And my challenge for part one is literally just to find all the numbers throughout the document and add them together. I did solve these challenges years ago in Python, so which is why you see my puzzle answer, my result is that I've already solved it. But we can get the puzzle input at the bottom here. It's just a giant blob of messy JSON. So I guess for that, we talk about the strategy. It'd be pretty trivial actually to write a regex that would go through and pull out all the numbers. So anything, optional, minus sign, any number of backslash Ds, and then grab those and just add them together. Assuming that part two is going to require us to do some more parsing of the JSON, we're going to go ahead and actually figure out how to parse JSON in Rust. I found, some Googling around in Stack Overflow, how do you parse a JSON file? Everyone seems to be pointing towards this Serday JSON from string function. And so I do have the Serday JSON create documentation up here. From string actually doesn't show up that many times in here, but it does show up. And we're going to use this kind of throughout the challenge. So with that, let's go ahead and jump over into VS Code. I'll use my GenDay script here for day 12. I just went over this in detail in the day zero video, but in short, it pulls the input.txt for me here, nice, right where I need it. And then it's got a main.rs kind of template that reads that input.txt into data. And so we can work from there. So I guess we'll first come up here and do use Serday. Better actually figure out how to spell this. Serday underscore JSON. And then from there, what we really need to get is this value thing. We'll also get access to the from string, but we'll use that. In fact, come down here and we'll say let JSON data equals, and then we'll do Serday JSON from string data like that. We're also going to have to add this to our cargo.toml. So we'll do Serday JSON equals, and we're getting very lazy. We're not doing versions anymore, but we'll be fine. So cargo run, let's just make sure that runs. It's going to take a second to update. When you first build it, it's going to have to go grab Serday JSON for one, any dependencies of that. Not sure why it's going so slow. And okay, so when it finally returns, basically we're a bunch of complaints that we aren't actually using it, but that's fine. That's what we're doing here. Okay, so what's our strategy? We are going to walk through this kind of recursively. So we're going to want to do something like, really we can do it down here. I think we can do, I guess we'll just call it like solve. And we're going to pass in our value, which will be JSON data like that. And that should be it. So we want to make sure this returns a number because we're effectively adding up all our stuff. So we can come down here and do function solve, and we're going to take a v, which is going to be a value like that, and we're going to return a. So we saw negative numbers in there, so we want to make sure we can include that. So we'll do I guess an I64. Could do an I size as well. And so let's start to think about what we got here. We're going to do this recursively, right? Because we don't know how deep we're going to go. I guess we could do nested loops or something, but that's going to get really hard to track. So we're going to use recursion. This is a great recursion place. So the first thing we need to do is say, like, what is our base case? Well, if we get back a number, if we call what is the value of just straight up a number, then we can return that number. And if we look over here at the documentation, there's a bunch of these as type methods, which you can call on a value. And there's all these is types here, which is these are what we're going to rely on. So we're going to use this is number function back here, and we can say, so if v.is number, then we're going to return v.as I64, just like that. And that works really nicely. If we try to run this now, we're actually going to fail, I believe, because we don't return, let's see, there's a couple pieces here. We expected an enum value found in enum results. So we might need to do some unwrapping here. Well, for one, I didn't call this. That's the problem. That's a starting problem. Let's make that a function. But now still we have errors here because we expected an enum value got a result. I wonder if we have to unwrap this. Oh, we're doing that thing where my extension's not working. Let me fix that real quick. Cool. Okay. So have my extension been working, we'd see right away we got a result here, and we don't really want a result here. We want JSON. We want a value, right? So we're gonna dot unwrap like that, and now you can see JSON data is a value. So that's gonna be successful. We're still gonna run this, and we expected an I64, but we got nothing. And basically that's because, if it's a value, great, we return a number, but otherwise we're getting nothing. So we can actually cheat a little bit for now and just say we're gonna return 0 otherwise, just so we can continue to make sure it works okay. Expected this found a option. So, okay, so we can just go ahead and unwrap that. And now, okay, so we're looking good. Okay, so basically our top level is not a number, so we return 0, and that's why we print 0 there. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we could run into strings. So we say like else if v dot is, and I forget if it is a string or str, so let's go back here and check, is string. So if this thing is a string, like this, we're just looking for numbers. So we're just going to return 0 here. This will actually be just what we had there. And I should call is string. There we go. And that looks good. We're going to need a semicolon there. We are not going to need that. Probably don't need a semicolon, actually. Okay, so we're still good. Okay, we're still good there. So now the next thing, we said we'd have numbers, strings, arrays. And so let's come down here. Now arrays and objects both are we're gonna have to recursively call into them. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go ahead and say, and I'm doing this as not part of this other itself for a reason. If v dot is let's say array, because that's simpler, then we can do for x in v dot as array. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to say for everything here, we're going to say sum. So here, this is what I want to do first. We'll come up here and we'll do let mut sum equals 0. So now we've got a sum, and we can say sum plus equals solve x, like that. And so now, whenever we get a value here, we're gonna have to say solve x. Yeah, that should be another value. Let's see. X is array. We got a vector of value. I didn't expect to. I guess we have to unwrap this. Do we have to unwrap this one time? It's array dot unwrap. Like that. We're getting closer. Now we got a value. Okay, so we have a value, but we're gonna have we're getting a pointer to a value, so we'll have to dereference that. Like that. We're still not totally happy. Come down here. We can definitely return sum. Now, what do we have about here? Cannot move shared reference. So we're having problems. We're having problems with ownership again. So here let's try adding a dot clone here to create, because we just need to get the value off of it. What are we unhappy with there? Cannot be dereferenced. Okay, let's get rid of that. And there we go. We're actually happy now. So if we've got an array, we're going to go through each object in the array, and we're going to pass it in and get its value, and then sum all those up and return the sum. Similarly, we'll say else if v dot is object. Now we'll say for, we don't really care what the key is. We'll say that, comma, x in v dot as object. Hopefully we can iterate over that. We probably want to unwrap again, just guessing based on the previous. And we'll do the same thing. Sum plus equals solve x dot clone, like that. And we return sum. And this might be everything we need. What I would like to do here, we can also do else. So if we get something else, if we get anything that's not one of these four things, we don't expect that. So we'll just do a panic, P-A-N-I-C, unexpected type of value, like that. And if we actually hit this, we can worry about running into it. So let's run this, see if we get something. That looks awfully close to what the right answer was. Let's see if we can check out what we got here. 1563366. That looks right. So we may have just solved part one. Sweet. Yeah, we did. So just to kind of recap that, we're taking our JSON and we're passing into this function. If our thing is a value, it's a number, great, we'll just return that number. If it's a string, we're gonna return 0 because we don't care about strings. If it's an array, we're gonna loop over all of those things, passing each child into the solve function. We're getting the results back and summing them up and then returning that sum. Same thing with an object, and that solves it for us. Let's go and check out part 2. They've realized that they've double counted everything that's red. Ignore any object and all of its children which has the property with the value red. Do this for all objects. So the key example to look at here is, it's like this array, because red is in this value, we actually ignore this 2. But we still count the 1 and the 3. Here, we ignore this entire thing because there's a red here. So what we're going to want to do here is, let's come up here and we can say, let's say we're going to change this a little bit so our function can be called, the function is going to be basically the same, but I don't want to copy and paste it. So we're going to come up here, we're going to say value, and then we'll say part2 bool. So now we've got a boolean that says part2. And here we just need to pass part2 in. And here we need to do the same. Oops. Part2. And so now, as long as part2, this should still return the correct answer. I can run this, make sure. Might complain that, yeah, okay. So now we can come down here and we can say solve JSON data true. And now we can come up here and just wherever we want to make it different. Let's see, we might need to clone this. Looks like we need an annotation. Okay, we can value. Sweet. Okay, so we look good there. We could run it again just to make sure. So right now, it doesn't, part two being true and false doesn't change anything, right? So what do we want to change? We want to change that if when we're going through an object here, before we do this loop, we can say, no, actually in this loop, I guess, we'll say, because here's where we get the values. And we can say if x dot, if part2, because if it's not part2, we ignore this, and x dot is string, and x dot as string equals red, like that. So if all those things are true, if it's part2, our value is a string, and that, doesn't matter where we are in this loop, we're going to return 0. And we're just going to break out of the loop and exit. So even if we've already solved and added some things to sum, it doesn't matter because now we'll break out and we're just going to return 0 for this the whole loop gets cut short. And so if we run this, we can't compile. So it can't compare, it's saying x as string equals sum red. Okay, so it's wrapped. I bet we could do this 2 ways. We could probably do an unwrap here. Or we could wrap sum around red. So that works. That didn't, well, give me the same answer though. Let's see, let's try the way they recommended just to see if it's different. Sum red. Save there. Run it again. Okay, so the good news is we're not crashing anymore. The bad news is we are not succeeding here. So we're looking for if is part2. Okay. And that's a true here. I'm sure I made some silly error here. Part2. And v is string. And because not v. I don't want to do v. That's never going to hit. X is string. All right, let's try that. All right, we got a different answer. Okay, so the difference I was checking v, not v being the object. And so v is an object. So this is never going to be true because v, it only gets in here if v is an object. And so v is not a string. So this is failing. Okay. So we get a result. No, is it right? I don't know the answer. Let's see. 96852. 96852. All right, that's awesome. I think that's it for today. Recursion, I love recursion stuff. Anytime an excuse we have to use recursion, and we're getting better at solving these inheritance problems and inheritance is the wrong word, ownership problems and things like that. So awesome. Thanks for sticking around to the end, and I'll talk to you next time.